Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her monitor, her forgotten coffee growing cold beside stacks of data printouts. The quantum communications lab hummed with the usual symphony of machinery, but tonight something was different. The signal patterns dancing across her screen defied everything she thought she knew about extraterrestrial communications. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her glasses. The translation algorithm she'd spent 5 years perfecting was pulling fragments of what appeared to be entertainment broadcasts from the noise. Not the technical or mathematical patterns they'd expected, but stories. Complex, intricate narratives from at least 3 different alien civilizations. The lab's panoramic windows offered a view of MIT's gleaming quantum array, its dishes pointed toward the stars like modern-day oracle bowls. Sarah had always loved how it looked at night, but now those dishes were delivering something that made her question everything about her work in xenolinguistics. She pulled up another segment of translated text, her hands trembling slightly as she read. The Earthborn moved differently than other species, their adaptability allowing them to thrive in environments that would break others. Their determination, paired with their unique ability to imagine multiple futures, made them both fascinating and unpredictable. Sarah checked the signal's origin. Proxima Centauri, from a civilization humanity hadn't even contacted yet, but they were writing about humans with an accuracy that sent chills down her spine. Dr. James Martinez, her research partner, walked in with fresh coffee and immediately noticed her expression. "Sarah, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Better," she replied, not taking her eyes off the screen. "I've seen us through alien eyes. Come look at this." James set down the coffee and leaned over her shoulder, his expression shifting from curiosity to disbelief as he read. That's impossible. The timestamp on this broadcast shows it's from 30 years ago. We hadn't even developed quantum communication then." Sarah pulled up more translations, spreading them across multiple screens. "It's not just one story, James. They have entire genres about us. Some are pure speculation. Others are eerily accurate. Look at this one. It describes human laughter as the sound that bridges understanding. They wrote this before they knew we existed." The implications started cascading through her mind. Either these civilizations had been observing Earth in secret for centuries, or something far more fascinating was happening. She pulled up another fragment, this one from a different star system entirely. The dreamers of the third planet carried stories in their DNA, each generation adding to an endless tale that reached across the void between stars. "We need to convene an emergency meeting," James said, already reaching for his phone. "The board needs to see this." Sarah nodded, but her mind was racing ahead. If aliens had been writing about humans long before contact, what did that mean for every science fiction story humans had ever written? Were they really fiction? The boundaries between imagination and reality seemed suddenly thinner, more permeable than she'd ever suspected. She began compiling the data, organizing the translated stories chronologically. A pattern emerged. The newer the story, the more accurate its portrayal of human behavior and capabilities. Recent tales even seemed to predict technological developments before they happened. As the first rays of dawn painted the quantum array in shades of gold, Sarah realized she was standing at the threshold of something unprecedented. This wasn't just first contact. It was the discovery that contact had been happening all along, written in the stories they told about each other across the vast distances of space. She took a sip of her cold coffee and smiled. The real story was just beginning. The Centauri archive rose before them like a mountain of crystal and light, its translucent spires reflecting the dual suns of Alpha Centauri. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her hand against the transport pod's window, still amazed that 6 months after her discovery, she was standing on another world. The archive contains over 20 million unique narrative works. Their guide, Archive Master Zix, explained, the tall, silver-skinned being moved with fluid grace as they led the Earth delegation through the entrance chamber. Some date back to the earliest days of our recorded history. Dr. Martinez whistled softly. And you found references to humans in how many of these? At current count, approximately 3 million works contain what we believe to be descriptions of your species, Zix replied, their bioluminescent patterns shifting to a thoughtful blue. The oldest dates back 20,000 years. Sarah exchanged glances with her team. 20,000 years ago, humans were still painting on cave walls. The implications were staggering. The main chamber of the archive opened before them like the interior of a geode. Crystalline data structures stretched in every direction, each containing thousands of stories from across the galaxy. Streams of light flowed between them, carrying requested information to researchers from dozens of species. We've prepared a research station for your team. Zix gestured toward a circular platform floating at the chamber center. It has been calibrated for human comfort and interfaced with your translation protocols. As they settled into their workstation, Sarah couldn't help but notice the other researchers stealing glances at them. To these beings, humans were like characters stepping out of ancient legends. Look at this, Dr. Emily Wong, their cultural specialist, called out. Her hands danced over the holographic interface as she pulled up a story fragment. This is from a children's tale written 12,000 years ago. It describes beings who dream while awake and reshape reality through sheer determination. Sound familiar? Sarah began cross-referencing similar descriptions across different time periods and civilizations. The patterns were undeniable. Species that had never contacted each other wrote about humans in remarkably similar ways. There's something else, Martins noted, pulling up another set of records. The stories evolve. Early tales describe humans almost like forces of nature, unpredictable, powerful, mysterious. But as the civilizations advance, the portrayals become more nuanced, more accurate. Sarah focused on a particularly detailed narrative from just a century ago. It described humans' capacity for both great kindness and tremendous destruction, their ability to adapt to any challenge, and their unique way of viewing the universe. The accuracy was uncanny. Archive Master, Sarah called out, has any other species been written about this extensively before contact? Zix's patterns shifted to a deep purple. No, Dr. Chen. This pattern is unique to humans. We have theories about why, but nothing conclusive. As the team worked through the ancient archives, Sarah noticed something else. The stories weren't just about humans. They seemed to respond to human stories as well. Tales of first contact, of peaceful cooperation, of shared discovery. They mirror humanity's own science fiction with surprising synchronicity. It's like we've been having a conversation across time and space, she mused, watching the streams of light carry more stories to their station. Every story we've ever told has been heard, and every story they've told has shaped us, even if we didn't know it. Zix's patterns brightened. Perhaps that is why your arrival was both surprising and familiar. In some way, we have known you all along. Sarah looked up at the vast archive of stories surrounding them. Somewhere in this crystalline library of dreams lay the answer to how humanity had whispered its existence across the stars long before they ever left Earth. The mystery was deeper than she had imagined, and they had only begun to scratch the surface. The holographic display in Sarah's temporary quarters at the Centauri Archive filled the room with a constellation of data points. Each point represented a story that had predicted human technological achievements before they happened. The pattern was impossible to ignore. "Computer, show me the quantum fold drive prediction again," she requested, her voice rough from lack of sleep. The display shifted, highlighting a passage from a young Proximan writer's story. The vessels would bend space itself, creating paths through the folds of reality. In this way, the Earthborn would step across vast distances as easily as crossing a room. The story had been published exactly 3 days before Dr. Lakshmi Patil announced the breakthrough that made quantum fold travel possible. Sarah had checked the timestamp 100 times, and the archive's quantum-locked records couldn't be altered. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Come in," Sarah called out, not taking her eyes off the display. Dr. Martinez entered, carrying 2 steaming cups of what passed for coffee in the archive. "Found anything new?" "Too much," Sarah replied, accepting the cup gratefully. Look at this timeline. She gestured, and a holographic display rearranged itself chronologically. In the past 50 years, there have been 78 instances of alien fiction precisely describing human inventions before they happened. The predictions are getting more frequent. James studied the data, his expression thoughtful. Could they be influencing our development somehow? I considered that, Sarah said, pulling up another set of data points. But look at the distribution. The stories come from different species, different worlds, with no apparent connection to each other. Some of these civilizations didn't even know the others existed when they wrote these tales. A notification flashed across the display. Another match had been found. Sarah quickly pulled up the new data, her eyes widening as she read. James, this is from a Centaurian children's story published this morning. It describes a new type of neural interface that... She trailed off, reaching for her tablet. With trembling fingers, she pulled up her newsfeed from Earth. MIT announces breakthrough in direct neural communication, the headline read. The timestamp showed it had been announced just hours after the story was published. This is getting weird, James muttered, reading over her shoulder. Getting weird? It passed weird when we found out aliens had been writing about us for 20,000 years. Sarah stood up, pacing the room. We need to look at this from a different angle. Computer, show me the emotional content analysis of predictive stories versus non-predictive ones. The display shifted again, revealing new patterns. Stories that accurately predicted human achievements shared certain characteristics, a sense of wonder, a deep understanding of human nature, and most intriguingly, strong emotional resonance with human readers when translated. It's like, they're not just writing stories, Sarah said slowly, the pieces starting to come together in her mind. They're receiving something, some kind of echo from the future, filtered through their understanding of humanity. James leaned forward. But why humans specifically? Why not their own species? Before Sarah could respond, another notification flashed. This time, it wasn't a new story, but a message from Archive Master Zix. Dr. Chen, we found something in the deep archives. An ancient text that might explain the connection. Please come to the lower chamber immediately. Sarah and James shared a look. The lower chamber housed the archive's oldest and most significant records, some predating known civilization itself. Ready to go down the rabbit hole? James asked, setting down his cup. Sarah smiled, already heading for the door. Who knows? Maybe Lewis Carroll was picking up alien transmissions when he wrote that story. As they hurried through the crystalline corridors of the archive, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something that would change humanity's understanding not just of alien civilizations, but of the nature of creativity and consciousness itself. The lower chamber of the Centauri archive felt ancient in a way that made Sarah's skin tingle. Unlike the crystalline beauty of the upper levels, this space was carved from something that resembled obsidian, its walls etched with patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Archive Master Zix led them to a central pedestal where a single data crystal pulsed with a deep violet light. Their silver skin rippled with patterns of excitement as they spoke. This record predates our current archival system, Zix explained. It was created by the predecessors, those who built the original archive. We've only recently managed to decode its contents. Sarah approached the crystal carefully. What does it say about the connection between humans and alien fiction? Not what. Zix's patterns shifted to a contemplative blue. But why? The predecessors discovered something about consciousness itself. They called it the resonance network. The data crystal projected a complex web of light into the air above them. Within the web, points of light pulsed and shifted like neurons firing in a vast brain. Every sentient species generates quantum-level consciousness waves, Zix continued. Most are contained within their own spatial region. But humans, they gestured, and a new pattern appeared in the projection, shown in gold. Human consciousness waves behave differently. They ripple across space-time itself. Dr. Martinez stepped closer to the projection. Are you saying humans are naturally telepathic? Not exactly. Sarah breathed, the implications hitting her. We're broadcasting. Not thoughts, but possibilities. Zix finished. Your species dreams in quantum frequencies that resonate across the galaxy. When other species receive these resonances, they interpret them as inspiration for stories. The more advanced the civilization, the clearer the reception. The projection shifted again, showing how human consciousness waves intersected with those of other species. Where they met, new patterns emerge, creating feedback loops of inspiration and understanding. The Saturn Research Station, Sarah said suddenly. They've been detecting quantum anomalies in the rings for months. We thought it was just a quirk of the ice crystals, but she pulled up the data on her tablet, comparing it to the ancient projection. The patterns matched perfectly. It's a natural amplifier, James realized. The rings are enhancing and reflecting human consciousness waves across the galaxy. Zix's pattern swirled with excitement. Precisely. And it's not the only one. Similar structures exist throughout the galaxy, some natural, some artificial. The predecessors built the archive at this location because it sits at a convergence point of these quantum resonance waves. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. So when we tell stories, when we imagine possible futures, you're literally sending ripples through the quantum fabric of space-time. Zix confirmed. Other species receive these ripples as impressions, inspirations, dreams. The most sensitive among them translate these impressions into stories about humanity. But the predictions, James interjected, the stories that come true. Time isn't linear at the quantum level, Sarah said slowly, pieces falling into place. When we imagine a possible future strongly enough, we create quantum resonances that travel both forward and backward in time. Some alien writers are sensitive enough to pick up echoes of futures that haven't happened yet. The obsidian walls seem to pulse with this revelation, the ancient patterns reflecting the dance of quantum possibilities above them. Sarah reached out to touch the data crystal, feeling a faint vibration beneath her fingers. We've always wondered why humanity seems so driven to tell stories, to imagine new possibilities, she said softly. Maybe this is why. It's not just entertainment or art. It's how we've been connecting with the galaxy all along, reaching out across the stars with our dreams. Zix's patterns shifted to a deep purple. And now that you know, the real question becomes, what will humanity do with this knowledge? The ancient chamber fell silent as they contemplated the implications, the web of quantum resonances spinning above them like a map of humanity's dreams, stretching across space and time. The New York Public Library had never seen such an unusual gathering. In the historic Rose main reading room, beings from a dozen different worlds sat among the wooden tables, their research displays creating a soft aurora of light beneath the magnificent ceiling murals. Sarah watched from the balcony as a tall Arcturian scholar carefully turned the pages of an ancient copy of the Odyssey, its crystalline eyes glowing with fascination. Nearby, a group of Proximan researchers huddled around a collection of science fiction magazines from the 1950s. It's quite a sight, isn't it? Dr. Emily Wong joined her at the railing. Every major library on Earth is like this now. The British Library has a waiting list, 3 months long, for alien scholars wanting to study our literature. Sarah nodded, still processing how much had changed in the 2 weeks since their discovery at the Centauri Archive went public. Have you seen the latest analysis from the quantum resonance studies? Emily pulled up a holographic display from her wrist device. The data is fascinating. Every story humans have ever told, from cave paintings to digital novels, has been sending out quantum ripples. The really interesting part is how those ripples have been influencing alien art and culture in return. Below them, a young Centaurian approached the Arcturian scholar, holding up a tablet. Honored one, I believe I found a correlation between this human novel Dune and the great meditation texts of Arcturus Prime. The resonance patterns are almost identical. Sarah smiled, remembering her own excitement at making similar connections. The quantum resonance network they discovered wasn't just carrying stories, it was creating a vast, interconnected web of cultural exchange that had been operating since the dawn of human consciousness. Dr. Chen. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find six, their silver skin shimmering in the warm library light. The Library of Congress has finished digitizing their entire collection for quantum resonance analysis. The patterns we're finding are remarkable. They moved to a quiet corner where Zix could project a larger display. The data showed how human stories had rippled outward through space and time, creating complex interference patterns with alien narratives. Each intersection point represented a moment of shared inspiration, a bridge between species that existed long before physical contact. Look at this, Zix highlighted a particular pattern. When humans first dreamed of reaching the stars, it created a quantum resonance surge that inspired 3 different civilizations to develop new forms of artistic expression. The Proximan light sculptures, the Arcturian dream songs, even my own people's pattern dancing, all were born from humanity's stories of space exploration. And in return, Sarah added, their art influenced our own storytellers through the same quantum network. It's been a two-way exchange all along. A commotion from the main floor drew their attention. The Arcturian scholar had discovered a collection of children's fairy tales and was describing to an eager audience how the quantum resonances from these simple stories had helped shape their species' understanding of moral philosophy. We're finding similar patterns in every human library we study, Emily said, scrolling through more data. The quantum resonances are strongest around works of imagination, fiction, poetry, myths, legends. It's like humanity's superpower isn't just telling stories, but sharing them across the cosmos. The Arcturian Science Council chamber resembled a massive geode, its crystalline walls refracting light in complex patterns. Sarah sat beside Dr. Martins at the presentation podium, watching the assembled delegates from 30 different species discuss the latest findings about human quantum resonance. The influence is deeper than initially suspected, senior researcher Ktal announced, their crystalline form sparkling with concern. Human narrative resonance has been shaping the development of our cultures for millennia. We must consider the implications carefully. Sarah studied the data flowing across the chamber's walls. The quantum analysis showed how human stories had created ripple effects throughout galactic civilization, influencing everything from technological development to philosophical understanding. With respect, senior researcher, she stood, addressing the assembly. These influences have been mutual. Our studies at the Saturn Research Station show that alien narratives have equally impacted human development. The quantum resonance network is a dialogue, not a monologue. The chamber hummed with translated discussions as representatives processed this information. A Proximan delegate, their luminous form pulsing with neural activity, raised an appendage. But humans generate stronger resonance patterns than any other species, they noted. Our most sensitive quantum receivers detect human narratives from across thousands of light years. The effect on developing civilizations could be profound. Dr. Martinez pulled up new data on the display. We've analyzed these effects extensively. Look at the correlation between human story resonance and cultural advancement. In every case, the exchange of narratives has accelerated positive development. It's a natural form of cultural cross-pollination. The chamber's walls shifted color as Ktal moved to the center. Yet we cannot ignore the responsibility this knowledge brings. The Arcturian Science Council proposes a period of study and reflection. We suggest temporarily dampening the quantum resonance network until we fully understand its implications. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. Dampening the network would be dangerous. Our research shows it's deeply integrated into the fabric of space-time itself. We don't just use this network, we're part of it. All of us. She gestured, and the display showed the intricate web of quantum connections, linking all sentient species. These resonance patterns aren't just carrying stories. They're creating a shared understanding that transcends normal spacetime. When we imagine possible futures together, We're literally weaving the quantum fabric of reality. A Centaurian representative, their silver skin rippling with thought patterns, joined the discussion. Dr. Chen is correct. Our own studies suggest that the network serves an evolutionary purpose. It prepares species to meet each other by creating subconscious bridges of understanding. The chamber filled with shifting light as more delegates added their perspectives. Sarah noticed how the Saturn Research Station's observation deck offered a breathtaking view of the planet's rings, their icy particles glinting like diamond dust in the sunlight. Dr. Sarah Chen stood with her research team, watching as waves of quantum resonance rippled through the rings, creating patterns of light that seemed to dance with their thoughts. "It's beautiful," Dr. Emily Wong whispered, adjusting the quantum visualization overlay. The rings now appeared as a vast neural network, each ice crystal acting as a node in an immense natural computer. Look at how the resonance patterns change when different species access the network. On the deck below, representatives from 7 different worlds were participating in a groundbreaking experiment, each being contributed to a shared narrative, their quantum signatures creating harmonious interference patterns in the rings. The rings aren't just amplifying the signals, Sarah noted, studying the data streaming across her display. They're synchronizing them, creating a kind of universal translation layer. It's like they're turning quantum consciousness into a shared language. Dr. Martinez pointed to a new pattern emerging in the rings. Watch what happens when they reach consensus on a story element. The resonance harmonics align perfectly. It's exactly what we saw in the ancient records at the Centauri archive. The station's AI highlighted a particular sequence of quantum fluctuations. "Pattern match found," it announced. "Current resonance formation shows 89% similarity to pre-contact cultural exchange signatures." Sarah leaned forward, excitement building. "This proves it. The quantum resonance network wasn't just carrying stories, it was preparing us all for each other. Every tale humans told about aliens, every alien story about humanity, they were all part of an evolutionary mechanism for cultural integration." Below them, an Arcturian researcher's crystalline form pulsed with revelation. "The harmony we achieve in storytelling creates quantum templates for future interactions. We literally practice understanding each other through the stories we share." The visualization showed how the resonance patterns from Earth's earliest cave paintings had rippled outward through spacetime, interweaving with alien art forms to create new methods of communication and understanding. Each species' unique contribution added another layer to the cosmic symphony of consciousness. "Look at this," Emily highlighted a historical timeline. Major leaps in cross-species understanding always coincided with surges in narrative resonance. First contact wasn't just peaceful because of diplomatic preparation. Our species had been unconsciously learning to understand each other for millennia. Approximan scientists joined them on the observation deck, their bioluminescent patterns shifting with excitement. "We've detected similar resonance nodes throughout the galaxy. Saturn's rings are just one of many natural amplifiers. The network is far more extensive than we imagined." Sarah nodded, remembering the ancient texts from the archive. The predecessors must have understood this. They built their facilities at resonance nodes because they knew these points would be crucial for future cultural exchange. The experiment below reached a crescendo as all 7 beings synchronized their narrative threads. The rings blazed with quantum energy, creating a display of light and pattern that took Sarah's breath away. In that moment, she could almost feel the stories being woven into the fabric of space-time itself. Every story ever told, she mused, watching the light show, every dream, every imagined future. They're all still up there, rippling through the quantum network, waiting to inspire new tales and new understanding. Dr. Martinez smiled, gesturing at the beings below. "And now that we understand the network, imagine what we can create together. This isn't just about sharing stories anymore. It's about consciously shaping our shared future." As if in response, the rings pulsed with new patterns, reflecting the quantum resonance of 7 species dreaming together. The great symphony of galactic storytelling was entering a new movement, and every consciousness, human and alien alike, was part of the orchestra. The stellar creative exchange occupied a space station in high Earth orbit, its crystalline spires and organic curves reflecting both human and alien architectural influences. Inside the central amphitheater, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before an audience that represented over 50 species from across the galaxy. 1 year ago, we discovered that stories could ripple across space-time through quantum resonance. She began, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. Today, we take the next step in our shared journey of understanding. The amphitheater's dome displayed a real-time visualization of quantum resonance patterns flowing between the assembled beings. Each consciousness contributed its own unique frequency to the symphony of thought and imagination. The first collaborative quantum narrative project begins today. Sarah continued, gesturing to the diverse group of storytellers seated in a circle at the center of the amphitheater. Writers, artists, and dreamers from every known civilization, working together to consciously shape our shared future through story. Among the circle, an Arcturian crystal poet's facets sparkled with anticipation. Beside them, a Proximan dreamweaver's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in harmony with the quantum field. A human novelist sat with her eyes closed, already tuning into the resonance network. Dr. Martinez monitored the quantum harmonics from a nearby console. "The synchronization is perfect," he reported. "We're seeing resonance patterns stronger than anything recorded in the historical data." The first story began to take shape in the space above the circle, projected through a combination of holographic technology and quantum visualization. It appeared as a tapestry of light and shadow, each storyteller adding their thread to the narrative. A young Centaurian observer gasped as the story touched their consciousness. "I can see it, not just the words and images, but the feelings, the possibilities. It's like dreaming while awake." Sarah smiled, remembering similar words from ancient alien texts describing humans. "That's exactly what we're doing. Together, we're dreaming new futures into being." The quantum resonance network doesn't just carry our stories. It helps us explore possible futures and understand each other across all barriers. The story growing above them showed a future where space itself was bridged not by ships, but by shared consciousness, where learning about a new species meant experiencing their stories directly through the quantum network, where every child grew up knowing they were part of a vast, interconnected web of dreamers and tales. "Watch the harmonic patterns," Emily pointed out from her station. "The resonance is spreading beyond the station. The Saturn rings are already amplifying it across the galaxy." Around the circle, more storytellers joined their consciousness to the narrative. A Proximan shared the sensation of swimming through stellar nurseries. An Arcturian contributed the crystalline mathematics of beauty. A human child, invited to participate, added the simple joy of playing in summer rain. Each contribution created new quantum interference patterns, building a story more complex and beautiful than any single species could have imagined alone. The future they were weaving together contained elements of all their cultures, hopes, and dreams. "This is just the beginning," Sarah addressed the audience again as the first story reached its conclusion. "Every day, more resonance nodes are discovered. More species join the network. More stories bridge the gaps between stars and souls." The quantum visualization showed the story's resonance patterns spreading outward through spacetime, touching distant worlds and future moments. Like ripples in an infinite pond, it would inspire new tales, new connections, new understanding. "We once thought we were alone in the universe," Sarah concluded, watching the lights dance above them. "Now we know we never were. Every story we ever told reached across the stars, and every story we tell now shapes the galaxy we will share tomorrow." As the first collaborative story faded, another began to form. In the quantum resonance network that spanned space and time, countless consciousnesses dreamed together, weaving tales that would echo through eternity. The greatest story of all, the future itself, was just beginning.